Over the past 5 seasons, the NBA MVP voting has been dominated by 3 players: Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, and Joel Embiid. It's a period of big men dominance that the NBA hasn't seen since before the days of Magic and Bird. Before Giannis' first MVP in 2019, the MVP had been won by either a guard or small forward for 13 of the past 14 seasons. The last 40 years of NBA history shows that big men winning the award in this many consecutive years is an outlier. While you might think that previous years of MVP voting has nothing to do with the upcoming year, voter fatigue is a common occurrence that many people are aware of. Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid have been at the forefront of the MVP conversation for years now. Unless they have a record-breaking season that makes them the undeniable MVP of the league, then I don't think we'll see them winning the award. I have 5 players here that have never won the award, but all of them are within the top 15 best betting odds to win the MVP. They each have had some hype around them at some point as either a favorite or a potential dark horse MVP candidate. Luka Doncic is the first name that comes to mind when discussing first-time MVPs. He's been a mind-blowing phenomenon since he entered the league, and he's been one of the MVP preseason favorites for the past few seasons. He's always just a preseason favorite though. While Luka puts up amazing numbers himself, the Mavericks never seem to be a regular season team that truly sticks out. The highest they've finished during Luka's career is as the 4 seed, and just last season, they didn't even make the play-in. There's only so much one man can do though. Just last season, Luka averaged 32.4 points, 8.6 rebounds, and 8 assists. When you're putting up stats like that, you have to look at the team around him to see what's holding him back. The Mavericks went and added players like Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and Dante Exum, who are all good players in their own right, but they aren't guys that can move the needle the way the Mavericks need. The Mavericks' big moves at the end of last season, when they acquired Kyrie Irving. He was brought in to be the Robin to Luka's Batman. I'm going to ignore all the outside problems regarding Kyrie and just speak on basketball here. Kyrie Irving is not a good fit alongside Luka. They're both players that need the ball in their hand to play to the best of their abilities. This was made obvious when the Mavericks went 5-11 in the 16 games that these two played together. Luka's stats also dropped, albeit slightly, when playing with Kyrie. Luka's an amazing player, but he just isn't in a place that's going to allow him to have the success that the all-time greats have achieved. I don't think this will be the year that Luka wins his first MVP. The next obvious candidate for a first-time MVP is Jayson Tatum. Since Tatum's entered the league, the Celtics have been title contenders, and Tatum's been the guy leading them for the past 4 seasons. Just last season, he was 5th in points per game and had the most total points scored overall. He was 4th in MVP voting behind the 3 big men, and he's the only player in the league besides them to receive a vote for at least 3rd place. While his offensive stats aren't as impressive as Luka's, his team being in the argument for the best in the league helps his MVP case tremendously. Historically, the MVP has gone to the best player and the best team in their conference. 4 of the past 7 MVPs haven't gone by this criteria, but I don't think this is going to be a trend that continues. All those MVPs had other reasons behind them, whether it be the storyline, voter fatigue, or voters believing that a player is due for an MVP. Tatum's the best player on potentially the best team. He's one of the best scorers in the game, and last season, he had a top 10 defensive rating in the entire league. His offensive and defensive skill sets combined is arguably greater than any other player in the league. Tatum's biggest argument against his game is his efficiency and consistency. In the 2022-23 season, out of the top 30 scorers in the league, Tatum had the 6th worst field goal percentage, but he takes the 3rd most field goals in the entire league. He takes the 5th most 3-point attempts per game in the league at 9.3, but his 3-point average is slightly below the average of the entire league. While this can be an argument against his overall skill, when it comes to the MVP conversation, I think it's a moot point. If Tatum's able to average over 30 points per game and lead the Celtics to the number 1 seed, he should be the clear frontrunner to the MVP. And those are both things that have a strong chance of happening. 2024 could be Tatum's MVP season. The next player I'm going to look at is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai took a huge leap last season, raising his points per game from 24 points to 31 on his way to an All-NBA first-team selection. He made a name for himself as one of the best point guards in the entire league. The Thunder as a team also took a huge leap, going from 24 wins in 2022 to 40 wins in 2023. A great step in the right direction for the Thunder, but a player isn't going to win MVP in a 40-win team. The team's over-under this season is set at 44.5 wins, so another jump is expected for them. While SGA will continue to improve as a player, I think the best way for the OKC Thunder to improve as a team is to allow the other young players on that team to get more opportunity. A championship isn't won with one guy. They need these other guys to step up and take more meaningful roles. While Shai will still be the go-to guy the majority of the time, he averaged less than 1 3-pointer made per game. If a player's going to have as much usage as Shai did last season, he either needs to be a realistic threat from 3 or average more assists than the 5.5 Shai did last year. If the Thunder play the same way that they did last season, then they'll still be a play-in team. But to truly become a title contender, they'll need more contribution from the rest of the team, which means that Shai will likely have worse stats because of that. I feel like this team could have a season like the Utah Jazz 3 seasons ago when they were first in the West. Donovan Mitchell was clearly the guy, like Shai is on the Thunder, but the entire team is a well-oiled machine. And now that the 2022 second overall pick Chet Holmgren's able to play this season, he could be the defensive presence that Gobert was for the Jazz team, but an even better offensive upside. I think that this Thunder team would be great this season, but SGA putting up MVP type numbers won't be the reason why. I would bet them to be first in the West. The value on that bet's great, and I think that is a better chance of happening than Shai winning MVP. The fourth player I'm going to talk about is Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell's first year with Cleveland was a successful regular season. They won 7 more games than the season before, and Mitchell was the clear top guy on the team. He averaged 28 points per game, and he made the All-NBA second team. The Cavs ended last season with a 51-31 record, one of the top teams in the league, but Mitchell missed 14 games, almost 20% of the entire season. In those 14 games, the Cavs went 7-7. They're a 500 win percentage team without him, compared to a .64 win percentage team with him. He's the clear reason they had one of the top records in the league. For Mitchell to win MVP, he'll obviously have to put up elite numbers, but that won't be the most important thing. With Mitchell leading the way, the Cavs need to either be the first or second seed, and they'll also have to be above the Celtics in the standings. If Milwaukee's the first seed with Giannis and Dame leading them, that's not that surprising, but the Cavs outperforming the Celtics would be a huge surprise. The Cavs are in a similar situation to the Thunder in that they need their other players to improve so that the team as a whole can be better. But the difference between Shai and Mitchell is that Mitchell put up these MVP numbers and had the Cavs just outside of the top tier of teams, while SGA put up these MVP numbers and the Thunder barely made the play-in. The other top players on the Cavs, Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, both have skill sets that complement Mitchell's. Them improving will improve Mitchell's game. If that happens, then the Cavs will be a force to be reckoned with, and Donovan Mitchell will be the MVP that leads them to the top of the league. Before I go into the last player, I do want to talk about 3 players who have never won the MVP, but they have betting odds that are higher than the last player in the video. These guys are all great players, but there are clear reasons in my eyes on why they won't win MVP, and I don't see a need to dig deeper into those reasons. First, we have Devin Booker. The only way Book wins MVP is if KD goes down with a season-long injury and the Suns are still a top team in the West. No players winning MVP is the second best player on their team. Trae Young is the second player, and I think that we saw the peak of the Trae Young Hawks when they beat Philly in Game 7 and ended Ben Simmons' career. Trae's a great player, but the team around him hasn't improved, while the teams that are better than the Hawks in the East are very clearly better than them. And the third player I want to mention is Anthony Edwards, who I did consider writing a section on, because I think that Edwards will ascend to another level this season and make an All-NBA team, but the Timberwolves just don't stand a chance in the West. The Rudy Gobert trade's going to haunt them for a long time. And the final player we're going to look at is Zion Williamson. There's been a lot of Zion slander over the past year. He was injured again, so he wasn't able to finish out the season. He looked completely out of shape while he was out for injury. And there was that little fling that came to the public eye during the summer. All the slander has legitimate reasoning behind it, but people forget just how good Zion Williamson is when he plays basketball. Before Zion was injured last season, he had the Pelicans as the first seed in the West, and he had the 6th highest odds to win MVP. They were on a 54-win pace. When he got injured, the Pelicans fell off hard. They ended the season as the 9th seed with a 42-40 record. If he didn't play the entire season, then the Pelicans wouldn't have made the playoffs at all. He was literally the difference between them being a lottery team or the best team in the league. In Zion's healthiest season, he averaged 20.3 points per game in the paint, the most by any player since Shaq back in 2000. It has literally been decades since we've seen a player as dominant as Zion in the paint. And that was with Zion's usage rate being only 29.6%. That 29.6% usage rate was only the 17th highest in the NBA that season. If Zion was being used the same amount as the players in the top 5 in usage rate percentage, then his stats would jump up tremendously. The problem is that the Pelicans aren't able to risk using him that much because of how injury prone he is. We've all heard the classic saying, the best ability is availability. Zion just doesn't have that. It's been a shame that we've been missing out on the beginning of what could possibly be an all-time great player's career, but things can always change. If Zion's finally able to stay healthy, he will be a finalist for the MVP. And while that is a big if, it doesn't hurt to be optimistic. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Didn't think anyone would come this far. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and comment your thoughts down below. Thanks.